Starched Silliness, also known as Memes 3, was, well, the third April Fools Operation, releasing on March 31st of 2021 and lasting until April 19th on the same year. This was the first meme event to directly support a charity, that being Doctors Without Borders. Although the TF2 wiki doesn't say it at all, the charity had a goal of $420 to meet and raised a grand total of $32,329 at the end of it. As I mentioned in the previous event, Memes 3 was the most significant revolution in the series, as it introduced Rafmod, a source mod tool that heavily expanded on mission making in many different ways. Although back then they used a much more stable version called HydraMod, as the original was being developed alongside Digital Directive, the upcoming mainline operation around that time. However, before I get into the specifics, the biggest thing to mention about Memes 3 was that it was launched by a separate MvM group that wasn't Potato. Instead, launched by Tindleberry and her team who had done work on the previous meme operations, and the servers were provided by Pineapple.TF. The most important thing to know about this separate team was that they would be eventually expanded and be later known as Moonlight MvM. There's a fair bit of history leading up to this group being formed, but to summarize, a few mission makers weren't happy with the direction Potato was taking with Digital Directive, which, I'll be honest, is completely justified as it did do a bunch of rather bad things that made it become regarded as the black sheep. These said few decided to split off from Potato and form Moonlight, which would later offer vanilla-based MvM tours as well as future meme tours in coexistence. And unlike Potato, they were much more private in how they organized events. But even though these two groups had clashing ideals, there was still some overlap where several mission makers simultaneously worked with both groups for their events. With the split that was happening between closed doors, Memes 3 initially launched with a fair bit of controversy in Potato's Discord. Firstly because Digital Directive was taking quite literally forever to come out, and then out of nowhere Memes 3 dropped, which was just a week and a half away from the actual announcement of Digital Directive, which was on April 10th. And then secondly, they had reused the same metal models as what Potato had, one of which had a name that further added to the confusion of the split and Pineapple's existence. However, the manager of Potato made an official announcement denouncing the whole thing and reassured that there was no ill will between the groups. And that's where the whole controversy basically ends and how Moonlight started. The drama wasn't all that deep besides creative differences and management issues. Anyway, it's time to actually talk about Memes 3. As I said in the beginning, this meme event utilized a brand new Rafmod that was being developed alongside Digital Directive. In the previous entries, they were quite limited in what they could shitpost with given the base tools. However, with the addition of Rafmod, the meme missions have been massively expanded on with things that previously weren't done before. The first notable thing was adding text. Absolutely insane, I know. No, but in all seriousness, being able to add text was a huge deal because you can do a whole bunch of things with it, such as telling a story, having dialogue from various characters, as well as informing players about what to expect. This also plays in the second feature of Rafmod, being item changes. These can include things such as changing attributes of various weapons, like making the fan of war hit yourself upon missing, making the Mad Milk and Jiraiya throw out a rocket instead of the jar, as well as some other attributes that already exist within the base game. But this system can also be used to blacklist specific things, so on some particular missions, you couldn't use weapons like the short circuit, upgrades like the projectile shield, or even classes like spy. The blacklist part was rather cringe, although people never really used it unless it was a particularly special case like survival or one class missions. You can also implement a custom upgrade file into the mission, so you can do things like adding new upgrades as well as changing pre-existing upgrades without a source mod menu. Although this too was controversial because for whatever reason mission makers had a lot of disdain towards these supposedly overpowered upgrades in MvM that wasn't the exploding gas. And then they were constantly changing upgrades willy-nilly for like no real benefit. It was especially bad when it came to Digital Directive and their efforts to try to make the missions more challenging, but yeah. The third main feature that was most notable was red support, where you can have a bot on your team that fights alongside you during a specific wave. This feature was not as controversial as the two others thankfully, but isn't utilized as much in the modern day. And then finally, the fourth feature was the red loss mechanic, where basically if everyone dies, it's game over. Usually whenever the mechanic is active, the bomb gets disabled and all the robots chase after players. For the most part, you'll see this on a few meme missions, though there has been a small handful of standard missions based on survival. There's also some other stuff that Rafmod provided, though it's all mostly on the technical side of things that normal people don't really care about, but to give a brief mention, these are custom tank paths, custom visuals including fog and overlays, point templates, extra spawn points, and other custom item attributes. I'm aware all this info should belong in a Digital Directive video, but since Memes 3 was the first to premiere Rafmod, yeah. After getting through Memes 1 and 2 and not really enjoying with the former all that much and having a bit more fun with the latter, but also kind of being unnecessarily long for my liking, I was significantly more engaged with the third entry. Not necessarily because the memes were starting to become more relevant towards the current year, but also because the meme missions have utilized Rafmod in interesting ways. Some of them do actually change up the gameplay in more ways than one, and they were far more experimental with what they wanted to show off. It's all thanks to Rafmod giving mission makers a very expansive set of modding tools that the meme missions onwards would in essence be cleverly disguised tech demos. camos. A lot more people will have more fond memories of Memes 2 to 5 as opposed to the first two, because on a technical scale, they did genuinely do a lot to shake things up in ways that normally wouldn't have been possible. Ironically, for what are essentially the MvM equivalent of anime beach episodes, there's a lot more budget and effort put into these meme missions than your typical ones, especially nowadays. The bar has certainly risen higher and higher over the years as Rafmod gets continuously developed, and the events onward show off tech that's even more cooler than the last. When it comes to the humor in Memes 3, it's looking at it now, it's kind of just meh. There's definitely a lot more shitpost style missions and plenty of trolling this time around, though they returned the trend that Memes 1 had where they run memes down into the ground. The most common meme you'll encounter in this operation is Among Us. To be fair, this meme did actually spread around like wildfire, and you literally could not go a single day without someone mentioning Among Us. For Potato, it was especially bad for them. So bad that at one point they had a channel named Among Us Prison, and they would banish anyone who posted Among Us to there. I wasn't in their Discord when it happened, but yeah, that was apparently a thing back then. Some of the other memes that bled into each mission included Big Chungus, the Troll Face, and the $19 Fortnite card, although these three weren't as prominent as Among Us. Pacing in Memes 3 can be a little meh at times, but I will say that the padding from Madness is now gone, so thank God the missions don't last around 30 minutes. But yeah, many of the memes died as soon as the operation got shelved, but it certainly didn't stop the meme series from getting more and more popular over the years, and especially with what Memes 3 had to show for it. As far as the whole tour is concerned, Memes 3 had 7 missions across 7 maps. However, they were all labeled as intermediate, as what meme missions are typically balanced around. Like with Match Mediocrity, there were 3 medals up for grabs and reusing the same medals from previous operations. Those are the Starched Silliness Potato Look-alike, the Super Spud, and the Curious Carbon that uniquely reuses one of the Madness models. However, this one was distributed to the donators and only needed $5 minimum. And in order to get the Potato Look-alike, you need to complete at least 6 out of 7 missions to get it, and it was the only requirement. There was no time-based criteria like with the 2 previous meme events. Anyway, that's essentially it for this operation and how it revolutionized the series. For the rest of the video, we'll be going over the 7 missions to Starched Silliness and what goes on within them. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Metroll Malice is a 9-wave mission that features a lot of trolling. I mean, the whole map is plastered with troll faces everywhere you look, including an Evangelion reference. First wave starts with a bunch of punchies that slowly transitions over the soldiers being broken in some way. Towards the end, there are giant heavies with tiny miniguns that deal barely any damage. The bot representing the separate troll face icon also appears quite late, and their name tag indicates this fact. Second wave has a bunch of cows of several varieties and has cow music. There are those that throw out milk constantly and those that shoot out explosives, including giants, although at some point they will have gate-bot cows. There's also some giant cows towards the end where you can clearly see their troll face and in the back of them. Third wave plays a mini version of Gangster's Paradise. It has several varieties of gangstas, but you'll eventually get red support on this wave, a couple of giant heavies being the police. Towards the end, you'll fight Captain Drip as Ultra Instinct plays. He has his melee range boosted significantly and one-shots everything. Fourth wave is Big Chungus. This showcases that robots can become humans, which was never possible before. You'll shoot down several varieties of common and giant engineers cosplaying as said character while Chungus music plays. At the end, you'll have several swarms of Big Chunguses running towards you and detonating as though they are sentry busters. And those who cheat being the Super Duper Deluxe Chungus, squad with a posse of other Chunguses that are invincible, but once the chief dies, they will also detonate. Fifth wave is Engineer Gaming. Several varieties of engineer bots using various weapons while you get red buff banner support. There's a tank at the end coming from the carrier tank, which normally wouldn't have been possible because Manhattan has no tank pathing. This tank in particular flies all around the place, which utilizes a custom tank path, and I'm sure many of us in the present day would recognize this as the prototype for blimp tanks. After you destroy the tank, this happens. The sixth wave has a wave bar of troll faces. A mysterious life form by the name of Troll joins the server and fights against Red. Also at the same time, Red team has their torsos crunched, and interestingly, the announcer calls this the final wave even though it isn't. After Troll dies in one shot, they proceed to do a large amount of trolling, and spawns 2 troll face portals at the bottom and upper floors respectively. Several bots come out, which all play the Minecraft hit noise. The giants here wield Australian rocket launchers, showing off a new Rafmod feature being droppable weapons. This feature was, not really seen anymore, to be honest. Troll returns at the end for phase 2. They spawn as a tank from the hatch, but races all the way towards the front around the map while having gigantic amount of health. They will deploy at the end, but ends the wave instead. 7th wave has 6 tanks. The first is a chief masquerading as a massive tank that constantly charges towards players, being referred to as vehicular manslaughter. The next 5 are regular tanks but spawn all around Manhattan. 2 will spawn from the carrier tank and drop down, 2 more dropping down from the window way up and above, and there's a tiny one spawning on the upper floor. 8th wave is basically Fortnite. The first giant is referred to as Who is Tyndall Barry, which is an in-joke that will be constantly brought up within memes 3. Every bot onwards will just be referring to Fortnite in terms of its weapons. It'll also play the popular Fortnite song, Chug Jug with You, but the lyrics are plastered randomly all over the screen in a very clever way. By the end is the $19 Fortnite card, represented by a chieftain that burst fires explosive Fortnite cards. 9th wave, which is the final wave, is where you'll be fighting against the impending doom. There's bots at the front to distract you for a bit before bringing out the Titan sniper named Pop Bob, which its head has a troll face textured on it, as well as a troll block on its crotch. You'll also have Captain Drift returning and supporting you as well as other punchies. Palooza is a 6-wave mission that is mainly more in line with TF2 in terms of its memes and tomfoolery. First wave will instantly start with snipers, though out of the 22, 16 of them will suicide instantly. There's a plethora of pyros afterwards, though you will be slowed to a standstill by the glue chuckers, being the milk scouts that spam the entire field with glue. There are super scouts afterwards, but subvert your expectations by running towards the hatch first before rounding back towards the front. There's a couple more pyros except they spew their flames in circles, as well as demonites with big swords. Then there's a pair of scouts that are both extremely accurate and inaccurate separately that shoot a bunch of pellets. There's a tank that hints its use of a custom path by how it levitates slightly above the grass. At the midpoint, it then flies up towards the air towards the crane of the map, where it slowly but surely loses health over time and explodes mid-air. To cap the wave off is a cheap pyro named Miss Weak to Melee that is only weak to melee. Second wave starts with a bunch of snipers again, but has a single heavy named Mr. Boss Dude that ends a wave instantly once killed. Third wave, it will reuse the same wave bar as before, but actually has all the robots featured. It plays out as a giant grind fest, killing off many squishy giants where they hardly do any damage. At the midpoint, it spawns 4 out of 5 tanks that moves extremely fast, one after another. The difficulty spikes up a bit afterwards, but we'll have the last tank moving extremely slowly with more health. At the end is Mr. Boss Dude II, that will come out as a normal heavy, but with 7500 health. Fourth wave, out of nowhere, starts teleporting bots in a bomb near the hatch, an obvious demonstration of the extra spawn point function. You do have ample time to stop them at the very least, and it's just a few punchies and scouts to deal with. Curiously, if you go outside, at the far corner by the tree you'll find a pyro glitching in and out, and killing it will also kill the scout behind the fence. After the ambush, a tank will spawn, however it constantly regenerates health, rendering it unkillable. When it runs the corner towards the main doorway, this happens. Onwards, there will be several standard boss using stat clocks as weapons, including giant soldiers that have enormous ones that clip through the entire map. There's a medic pairing, consisting of a soldier BF backed up by their giant medic BF. Also, holy shit, the numbers on this rocket launcher stats. Killing the medic will result in them being vote kicked off the server. At the end is a major crits joke from a bygone era, but a row of teleporters show up and teleport Sergeant Crits out and killing them in the process. Fifth wave has a bunch of bowmen, those including shooting in the spread shot, those shooting all around themselves, and giants that hold their bow out and never fire the bow. There is a particle effect at the corner of the front, and grabbing it will have it on your screen for the rest of the wave, which is quite annoying. There are shield medics on their own that will constantly switch their shields in and out, which is a Rafmod feature. At some point, you will get a swarm of charging busters that are able to detonate mid-charge. It's a single giant shotgun heavy afterwards, followed by the most defining segment of the mission. A single tank spawns, driving super fast back and forth at the middle of the map, followed by another tank that spins in a circle. After a while, the other tanks of the wave will spawn in several varieties that's scattered around the map. There are 3 tanks stacked on top of one another. There's a Russian doll tank, where it decreases in size per explosion. There's 3 paper-thin tanks near spawn, 2 which are rather small and resting on some objects. There's a tank that's glitching in and out, a tiny tank that requires you to platform up and above and melee it, a rolling tank that constantly spins at the front, and then finally the most iconic one being a tank hanging from a crane. If you actually shoot down the cable, the tank will fall down into the ground, allowing you to easily destroy it. Finally, the 6th wave has a bunch of robots of questionable varieties. I'm honestly not sure how to best describe this segment. There's a plethora of squishy tanks, though destroying them seems to also have their effects also show up at the 2 silos. At the end of whatever the hell you dealt with for the past 3 minutes, there was a chief burst fire down that struggles to get out for a bit, revealing its entirely elongated body once outside, and the grenades that it shoots out are A-posing robot demos. Petrolleum Pandemonium is a 7-wave mission with plenty of trolling to go around. Firstly, it changes a variety of weapons, those including meta weapons like the Beggars, Brass Beast, and Scottish Resistance to make them useless. Then they also disable reanimators from the mission, which are the things that medics heal to revive you. First wave starts out with a red medic appearing in the middle of the front. The kill feed prints out messages, adding some suspense, shortly followed by a demo appearing right on top of the medic, turning everybody into Funko Pops. Everyone here, including the bots, are miniature size, and the gameplay boils down into third-person melee combat. There's a Funko Pop tank, and the medic becomes a boss that you fight towards the end. It is quite shit to play Scout this wave since there's no cash drop to heal you, which is why after wave completion, the mission apologizes for this fact. The effect stays on after the wave, but fortunately you can switch classes to remove it. Second wave starts with a $19 Fortnite card. This time there are 3 of them that will hug around you harmlessly and will drop a lot of money. Onwards, you fight several varieties of cash piles, many that will use guns and rocket launchers. There's a rare magic pickup in the front, but it is pure bait as getting close will have you insta-killed. There's a support that will flame from behind that is named the Gaming Fungus. I have no idea what the hell this is referencing, but I will put on the screen where their icon is based off of. At the end is a chief demo based on a Stonks meme, where the grenades propel you towards the skybox. Third wave is an Among Us reference. The mission schizo post with a wall of text in the chat box symbolizing how crazy the meme really got in Potato, but in essence the wave is empty, and the mission simply wants to deliver a message, quite angrily might I add. Fourth wave starts with the Grubhub's meme.
Grubhub perks give you deals on the food you love. The kind of deals that make you
The giant demo freezes everyone caught in a blast radius as swarms of giant spies ambush you from behind and butter knife the shit out of you. The rest of the wave has robots representing fast food chains, including mini giant sandwich heavies being inverted McDonald's employees. There's also Sonic, represented by giant soldiers, and scouts looking like Sonic the Hedgehog. Burger King has snipers coming out in massive swarms that can completely lock down the entire map if you aren't fast enough to juke their aim. And there's giant bombers shooting out chicken buckets representing KFC. At the end is a giant heavy moving at a snail's pace representing Kroger. Fifth wave mainly shows off robots utilizing Australian weapons that can be picked up. However, the mission trolls the players by slapping on a speed penalty that stops them from moving at all. Sixth wave is where reality begins to fall apart, and it will start with Sheldon Cooper joining the server and fighting against you. The map is completely enshrouded in red fog as swarms of Bazinga boxes show up all around the map. There will be 3 pyramid tanks showing up back to back at the end, and the supports showing up are A posing climbers named Math Science History. After beating the wave, the mission maker leaves a message calling out people in the Discord. The 7th and final wave has a yellow colored tank flying up on the right side of the front before moving towards the middle. Afterwards, there's a fight against a Titan sniper named Titanic Oil Cannon that drenches you in piss and pulls you up towards the skybox if you jump. There will also be pistol scouts, both the common and giant variety, the former of which only carries the bomb. Return to Monke is a 6-wave mission. Before starting though, this mission utilizes a custom upgrade file that overhauls several upgrades as well as adding a few new ones. There's too much to go over, but to summarize, most of it is just price changes and reducing a few ticks on some upgrades. Also, yes, the mission features T-posing Gardevoirs that serve as merchants at the upgrade stations. This is also one of those missions that has the first subways feature one bot that increases in count over and over again. This time, they are all major leagues that have 50 health each. First wave introduces us to the Overseer. In this mission, they're kind of the dungeon master, at least that's what it feels like. This wave starts out with groups of punchies, as well as charging demos on the right spawn point. This mission has the most amount of red support within this operation, which they appear on every single wave here. For wave 1, you'll have an SMG sniper named Clem. The wave then has... oh, for God's sakes. Then it has storms to charging demos at one point. As the last few punches come out followed by gas pyros, there will be a chief soldier at the end that wields a comically large shovel. Wave 2, the Overseer brings us a Castle Crashers themed segment. We've got several of the bots cosplaying as the mini-mobs from the game. The War Machine is brought in as a regular tank, but an important thing to note is that Rafmod allows tanks to have custom icons. At the end, you'll fight the Orange Princess that uses both the flamethrower and the flare gun. You'll also get a red Demo Knight being the king, and if you can get them to fight each other, they'll auto jump and sync. Wave 3, the Overseer BRBs, as reality falls apart again by the rift. There's 2 snipers that are aimbotters, being invincible and instantly killing you. At some point, the rift brings Jerry, a red sniper that will one-shot them and also be invincible. They have dialogue that spews out over the course of the wave, but they will at one point ask who Tindleberry is. The wave overall has a plethora of bots acting all weird. Some include giant pyros switching flamethrowers, engineers with shotguns being called mildly overweight scouts, and blast soldiers that deal fall damage on hit. 4th wave, the Overseer notices that 95% of you are not subscribed and wants you to hit the like and subscribe button, which, hey. The wave has robots of several varieties that for the most part push you around. There are balloon slime supports being those shovel soldiers that jump up and parachute. At the end is a Skeletron Prime that is backed up by a squad of other bots wielding giant scaled weapons, and you will be supported by an invincible Bat Saber scout named Glupshido. 5th wave, the Overseer wants you to return to Monke, and it brings out an entire balloons TD wave. You'll grind down several balloons that will progressively bring in stronger variants as the waves go on, and the tanks pretend to be the Moabs of this wave. You'll also have red support that has random choice between 4 bots: Abib the Ape that is a charged nuke soldier, Pungo the Primate that walks around and punches things, Big Floppa that uses the minigun, and Comedy Condor that uses the Enforcer. 6th wave, the last one in the mission, calls Daniel out for not laughing and brings out Horde of Samurai downwards that Schadenfreude his players on hit. Also, any players wielding the Hasatsuichi will still be killed here. Afterwards, the Overseer turns themselves into a pickle. Yeah. Their farewell message is in the Maori language from New Zealand. The rest of the wave plays out in standard fashion, but all of them wear pants, including the red support Bat Scout that is just literally pants. You'll have a cheap Blast Soldier at the end that dies instantly, and the Pickle Overseer wants you to type F to pay respects. Ujealous is a 7-wave mission that is a bit more text heavy compared to the others. The first instance of it is right at the start with a massive wall of text, telling you a bunch of things you'll deal with throughout, along with specific things being banned. I know in the previous meme videos I complained about the music being used not stopping after wave completion, but this mission features quite a lot of it, and they still haven't figured out how to stop them on their own. And yeah, you can't type in the console command to fix it, but it really is just an inconvenience to do it every time. And I hope to God it gets addressed in the future meme tours. Spoilers, it does. One thing before we actually start is that if you inspect the pop file yourself, the first thing you'll see is the mission maker's diary. Initially, they are rather optimistic about making the mission, before slowly going insane over the voices they've been hearing. By the end, they managed to finish the last wave, before being ultimately consumed by Choga on day 3654. A very small Easter egg, and I imagine the creator getting all giddy after seeing the very first person ever pointing this out. First wave starts with several boss of the uncanny variety, Air Blast Pyros having their flames pushing you backwards, medics don't heal, and heavy spin forever. The soldiers have their rockets reversed onto themselves, and Eternal Barrage shoots homing rockets that will slow down to a standstill. At some point, the mission will have an Ultra Robot Killer 2342 join the server, but they won't do anything. Second wave, the mission will remove the bomb and introduce the red loss mechanic. There will be several slimes jumping up and down chasing after you, including a massive king slime that can spawn slimes from itself. This is also where Ultra Robot Killer joins the server again. There is quite a bit of downtime when you're waiting for the next subwave. As you feel an evil presence, several eyeballs emerge along with the Eye of Cthulhu that can shoot homing rockets, before transitioning over into phase 2 where it charges towards you and melees. Third wave is a cutscene, or a theater play. You have an invincible scout bot coming out explaining that the robots will be arriving late due to Captain Punch drinking motor oil, and you will be forced to stand around for 1 minute. You'll see someone from a previous mission accidentally making a cameo, the elevator music corrupting itself, and Ultra Robot Killer joining red, getting pissed off with not buying exploding gas and certain commands not working before leaving. At some point there will be a question about Tyndall Berry, but this will be the last time that we ever see this message in the tour. Afterwards is this.
Wrap up whatever you were bragging about and look at that.
This sucks on ice. Yeah, why don't you come over and say that to my face, tough guy?
Fourth wave is an entire Among Us reference, fighting several bots all around, including spies and pistol scouts. The last spy will be named Crazy Joe and is invincible. Eventually they do get voted off by red team, but involuntarily, and then the wave slowly but surely goes crazy by spawning several Among Uses that hug you harmlessly. It does take quite a while for the mission to get on with it, but that's the Among Us reference for ya. Wave 5 has a bunch of chads. Those include swarms of bottle demos being sex havers, moving erratically but taunting to give you an opening. Then there's a sex creator, a chief engineer that also moves erratically but can be locked down at a spot where you can freely shoot it. Also, it plays a lot of hit noises. Mr. Giant Head with a battalion supporting you, before getting to Chad Thundercock himself, represented by a Titan Heavy shooting homing rockets in a burst. Wave 6 will start with a bunch of charging Caber demos cloaking in and out. There are support tanks, the first of which is normal, but the others afterwards spawn in mass, flying above, across the front, and into the ground behind the front upgrade station. The rest of the wave has soldiers and demos cosplaying as each other, giant vaccinator combos with heavies that don't resist anything at all, and giant charged soldiers tracking terribly because they are on cloud 9. Around halfway, Ultra Robot Killer makes their last appearance by joining the bots through the proper command and hitting you with exploding gas. Killing them will get them vac banned, which explains how they managed to do it now. After killing the last giant soldier, this happens. The final wave reintroduces the red loss mechanic and has you killing the a Girardi sniper representing Choga. It spews a bunch of gibberish and black text over the course of the fight as it constantly spams out Girardi that gives you the effect of inverse gravity. At the same time, they periodically shoot out a troll face bomb that spews rockets around while it homes in and one-shots you. Cringe is a 9-wave mission featuring a variety of memes, although one thing to note is that the map itself, Thematic, is a non-Halloween version of Traumatic, and where that has seen 3 missions over just 1 operation, Thematic has no standard missions except this meme mission. First wave has 69,420 on its bot counts, however the latter is fake, and the former mainly consists of shooting scout bots with weird names. There are 3 small tanks to shoot down back to back, and the support is an invincible sniper that for the most part is completely harmless. Second wave is Minecraft. You grind down several bots building the weapons and tools of that game while also dealing with a few creepers. At the end, a swarm of banner soldiers will appear as potion splashers, supporting the last 4 giant soldiers with diamond pickaxes. Third wave is anime. It will start with 10 road rollers falling from the sky, then the rest of the wave has plenty of Dragon Ball characters including Goku, Vegeta, and some giants being Broly, though there are others that are soldiers that shoot out homing explosive ghosts. At the end is Gogeta, posing on the field. They attack you by spinning up their minigun for 5 seconds and insta-killing anyone caught in the line of fire. Fourth wave is gas, gas, gas. The wave demonstrates the increased speed limit brought in by Rafmod. All the robots move at fast speeds, progressively getting faster and faster as the wave goes on. Eventually you have a speedy tank being a camper van looping in circles for a while. If it manages to survive long enough, it will drive around the midsection of the map till it ramps off a building, landing out of bounds and becoming stuck and allowing you to freely shoot it. Fifth wave is piss. Several robots drench you in piss, including jars and guns, and that's really it. Sixth wave has a player named Biggie Small spawning in and spamming their Hardy Laurel, enabling roam vision for everyone, although it doesn't work on the wave. Also, you can deal friendly fire damage to them, which according to the pop file is apparently so that the wave doesn't soft lock. All the wave is that you grind through several crit boosted bots that deal barely any damage, and despite the rate bar, it lasts for around a minute and a half. 7th wave has several standard bots with medals with their names mocking it, as well as a few Marasmuses that upon hitting you will make you drive a bumper car. There's also a red Titan soldier standing idly in the background representing hydrogen.
Metals, you want it? It's yours, my friend.
8th wave starts with the chief masquerading as a tank that shoots out explosive tanks this time. There will also be spy crabs going around and stabbing you, though the hitbox is extremely small to the point that bullet weapons can't hurt them at all. There will be a big chungus afterwards, as well as several opposing scouts that double jump around and assert their dominance. And then afterwards is yeah. These giant snipers for the most part piss on you and have their names being pisses on Amogus too. 9th wave is the final wave, and here you will have 2 ubercharged tanks back to back. Alongside is a chief black block soldier named Extremely Good Boss that fires 3 rockets all around themselves at once that instantly kills players in a massive radius. Even though you can kill the bosses in time, the 2 tanks on field will not drop uber, meaning you will still inevitably lose. Except you don't. Deluge Dirge is the last mission of Memes 3, and it's got 7 waves. The mission takes place on Ventus, which is a map that only had a meme mission until Roasted Barbecue came around and had a standard mission on it, and I'm mistaken this map for showing up there for the very first time, so oops. With the past several missions structured the ways as shitposts, this one takes a more thematic approach. It's an entire homage to Splatoon 2's and 3's Salmon Run, which is a PvE focused mode. Much like Garden Warfare, it does take itself seriously, but with several things to differentiate itself. The mission commits fully to the red loss mechanic, meaning it's a survival mission through and through, and there is no bombs so the boss chase after players. However, one unique technical thing it had was that it limited the amount of buybacks to 3 per wave. Speaking of bots, they are all based on the mobs of Salmon Run. Those include chums, being various classes running around with frying pans trying to hit you. A couple of variants include the tiny scouts being small fry, and the mini giant heavies being the cohawks. And there's also the goldies that are large and glowing that drop a large sum of credits. There's also various specials to encounter throughout, all of which get introduced on the first wave. There is the steel head that slowly fires bombs that deal very high damage but with a long fuse time. The steel eel head that lays bombs around itself, requiring you to kill their medic pockets so that you can actually damage them. The scrapper is this little weird car thing that charges towards players with a high turn rate and can deal lethal amounts of damage. There's the stinger, a very weird towering pillar of pots with a bird head that moves around, spins up a minigun for 6 seconds to a standstill before shooting crit boosted bullets like a turret. The maw is a giant scout that cloaks in once spawned and decloaks once it attacks, and it deals quite a lot of damage. The drizzler is a soldier that jumps high in the sky and shoots rockets in a massive burst that homes in on players. And finally, the flyfish that can also do the same thing but slower and stronger, I think. Anyways, on most of the waves you'll be fighting the mobs in a survival-like setting, but there are a few ways that separate themselves from one another. On wave 3 in particular, you'll fight through the fog of war for a couple of minutes as it sends fast-moving chumps at you. Wave 5 in particular has 6 grillers, but in reality they are tanks that can deploy onto the hatch. These grillers, interestingly, do shoot out sticky bombs, which as we know today would eventually become the sticky tanks. Wave 7, the last wave of today, will have whatever the hell this is, which I later found out are called motherships. They hover over the ocean, periodically sending out smaller motherships as flying tanks, as various commons parachute in and storm the field. They'll eventually empty out the limited supports before the last 2 motherships spawn simultaneously. And that about wraps up Starched Silliness, a very noteworthy entry to the meme series that did quite a lot with the technical feats. Though the content did get rather outdated the instant it got shelved, and also the split between community MvM creators, but yeah. I hope you do the things as the Overseer begged you to do, and maybe consider joining me next time for Petrolleum Pandemonium, the 4th entry that would further redefine the MvM series with the ever-evolving Rafmod, featuring even more never-before-seen visuals and actual legitimate cutscenes.